Hello, good afternoon here in New York. My name is Kirk. I use they, them pronouns. And today I want to talk about top surgery. Top surgery, as you may already know, is surgery for the top half of your body to affirm your gender. It's something that trans people and non-trans people actually deal with. Cis women who have mastectomies sometimes can get gender-affirming top surgery, breast augmentation, whatever you want to call it. But often when people talk about top surgery in terms of the trans community, the non-binary community, what they're talking about is removing breasts from people who have breasts, who identify as non-binary, and for whom those breasts are dysphoric. But what I want to talk about is top surgery for people like me, AMABs. I do not have breasts at the moment. I'm breastless. But and for me, that is a source of dysphoria, actually. I want breasts. I would love to have top surgery, blah, blah, blah. But I'm not here to talk just about what I want, me, all of my desires. What I'm here to talk about is why you never really see or hear about AMAB people undergoing top surgery, undergoing breast augmentation. I have done cursory searches on Google in the past and I've come up with next to nothing, but really it's not about finding the one example to prove me wrong, to prove that it happens, because I'm sure it does happen. What I'm really interested in talking about is the culture around top surgery, around non-binary identity, and why it might be so focused on the issues of AFAB people, who make up, I would say, probably 3/4 of out non-binary people, as per a large, widespread, 100,000 person anonymous poll that I saw a couple of years ago. But before talking about all that biz, I want to talk about gender. Let's go over the details. The Gender 101. What is gender? Gender is, and this is my definition, it doesn't have to agree with yours. Gender is the physio-psychosocial rendering of differentiation between human beings as they exist in the world. And what that means is that gender is located in the mind, in the body, and at large in society, because we couldn't have a gender if it wasn't recognized by other people in the world. We rely on other people to gender us, correctly or incorrectly is another story, but we rely on people's perception of us in order to express and to live our gender. Because if we were, just imagine if you are alone by yourself, if you were the only person who exists in the world, do you have a gender? How does your gender function if you are the only person, or the only human being that exists? It doesn't. You really do need other people and other people's perception of you in order to express your gender. And that is a complex sort of issue. That is not something a lot of people think about. We're still living in a world where many people delusionally believe that gender is identical to sex, that gender is exclusively based on what genitalia you have, and all of these other sort of really, really lowbrow understandings of gender that aren't even biological, which is funny because they claim to be so interested in biology, the people who claim that stuff. But yeah, so gender is not just something that you have for yourself alone in isolation. Gender is something that is expressed socially, and it is expressed by the perception of you by other people. And so that's why I want to go back into top surgery. And because I think it is a really interesting phenomenon that people don't really talk about in the way that I'm about to talk about it, which is why is top surgery a thing, and why is it usually meant to mean AFABs getting breast reduction or removal surgery? And I would say that part of the reason is because when we talk about gender in our society, in Western society, largely women are seen to be gendered and men are seen to be non-gendered. Male bodies are seen as lacking gender, and female bodies and like what the traits associated with female bodies, fat in certain areas, breasts, the ability to conceive or to become pregnant, those are all associated with gender. Not even female gender, not even womanhood, but just gender. And it's because we live in a patriarchy, we live in a male supremacist society, and because of that, maleness is normalized and femaleness is othered. The same thing is true of whiteness. We live in a white supremacist society, and so whiteness is normalized. Whiteness is seen as the norm, and all other races are other. And you see this when people are describing situations, they'll often call attention to people's races when they are not white. So like a black man came up to me and said this, an Asian woman was walking down the street or whatever. But when it's a white person, it's usually just a man said this, a woman said this, a child said this. Whiteness is erased, and likewise, maleness is erased. And so I think that there is a huge desire for top surgery, and specifically for breast removal and breast reduction surgery, because AFAB non-binary people who have breasts feel like their breasts make them be seen as a woman, and they're not wrong to think that, because of the way society genders people, because of the way society sees breasts as A, sexual, and B, a signifier of womanhood. I think that non-binary people are totally valid in feeling like having breasts gives them dysphoria. And I'm not the arbiter of who can have dysphoria and who can't, or which dysphorias are valid. All I'm sort of saying is that because of the way society views breasts as feminized and as gendered, as opposed to like non-breasted bodies, bodies like mine are seen as non-gendered. And so for AFABs to undergo top surgery is to render themselves closer to the like literally non-binary gender that they feel themselves to have. So that makes sense. That fits. All the pieces fit together. But then, what about me? What about people like me? What about AMAB people, AMAB non-binary people? I think we deal with a sort of like a bit of a different problem. And it's like sort of coming like almost like trying to meet in the middle, but coming from totally different places and needing sort of different strategies to come and find that sort of non-binary gendered appearance that is satisfactory to the way that we feel inside, the way that non-binary people feel inside, which is why we seek out things that make us appear gender non-conforming. It's why I wear makeup, aside from it being just fucking fun and cool and makes me look good. I wear makeup because it is gendered. Makeup is gendered in the same way that breasts are gendered as feminine. But it says clearly that I don't have an absence of gender. I'm not just like I'm not just male, which is a non-gendered gender, weirdly. But I'm something else, and that's what makeup does. That's what wearing slutty mesh crop tops like this does. It throws a little confusion into the mix, in a good way, where I feel like I'm closer to being perceived as the gender I am, as non-binary, as opposed to just sort of going out in a t-shirt with no makeup. And from that point, from there, it's like it's really easy. It's really and sorry, it's sort of a jump, but it's really easy for me to appear as a man, as a male, to not appear to have gender the way our society sees it, to be just the norm, just a man. But that's not what I want. That's not what I want to have in my life. And so it's sort of interesting because for the same reasons that non-binary AFAB people get top surgery, I would also like top surgery. But it's like the reverse process that gives me an aspect of gender that doesn't jive with what is expected based on the physiology of how I look. Because I think that's another thing that queer people are reluctant to talk about, because it can be used. It's seen as something that can be used as ammo by conservatives and by anti-queer people in the world, which is that our bodies without hormone replacement therapy to affirm our genders, or surgery like FFS, facial feminization surgery, stuff like that. Without that stuff, I look like a man. My body looks like a man's body unless I do something to smack people in the face to say that it's not a man's body. And that's sort of, it's complex, and I understand it's kind of hard to talk about without being sounding like a biological essentialist, like, oh, like I was born with XY chromosomes, therefore I have a quote unquote man's body. You know, it's difficult to really talk about, but I do have the body of someone who might have been a cis man. It's just like, sometimes it's just like hard to talk about it without going on and on and on. Like your sentences become paragraphs. But yeah. But in a way, and I'm so like nervous about speaking for AFAB people because I don't want to do that. I'm not speaking for AFAB people, but AFAB people look a certain way because of the way their bodies have developed without the intercession of hormones. And I know AFAB non-binary people who go on T and it looks like they look fucking dope as shit. And I know AFAB people are mitigating the way their body is being read by the world. It's not necessarily that their body is female and they're trying to fight against that, but it's more like their body is being read, would be not with, if they dressed as they were expected, if they acted as they were expected, their body would be read as a woman's body. And what AFAB non-binary people do is they try to subvert that. And what a lot of queer people do is just trying to subvert society's impression of them, to sort of like escape, to like jump the tracks of the status quo, to jump the tracks of what people expect when they look at you. And so for AMAB people, I think it's just the same. And it makes me almost wonder why you don't hear more about AMAB people getting top surgery. Like, I don't know. I still feel like there's this huge gap in terms of queer representation for AMAB non-binary people like me. It's like you definitely, we definitely see AFAB non-binary people. That's like when you think of a non-binary person, that's who you see. That's the representation we have in the media is a white, skinny AFAB non-binary person, shapes, sides, whatever. You know, it's like, it's a stereotype. It's less likely that you see people like me, and it's more likely that you see trans women who, and especially trans women who can pass. And thinking about this now, I wonder how much of that is because of cis men's discomfort with masculinity being subverted in such a ambiguous way. Because I think it is pretty ambiguous for me to exist the way that I do, to exist. Like, I have stubble right now, but I have makeup. I'm wearing a crop top, but I don't have breasts or whatever. I don't know. But I think that cishet men especially, but all cis men, let's be real, have a level of discomfort when traditional masculinity is subverted in the ambiguous way that it is with non-binary people, and especially non-binary AMABs. Because with trans women, obviously trans women go through a lot, and I'm not diminishing their struggle, but I think that trans women are at least more understandable to cis men. I think that they can understand it. It's like, because it fits into the binary, and I think that it still like threatens their masculinity a little bit. I think it's like, because it's like the idea that goes through their heads is like, oh, like, you don't want to be a man, like, what are you doing? Like, it like throws into question the value that they place on their own masculinity. But at the end of the day, it's still a rejection of that masculinity in their minds. It's like, it still fits within the binary. At least you're a man, or if you're a man, you're a man. If you're a woman, you're a woman. That's what cis men think. But when it comes to AMAB non-binary people, it's more complicated. For when you have people like me, it's not something that can be easily categorized. Or should I say, we are not something that can be easily categorized. And we're not something that can easily fit into the paradigm of the male gaze either. Because I think for all cis men, I think that non-binary AMAB people are sort of an anomaly. For trans women, you can be attracted to them, you know, they are women, they're hot, you know. If you're like a cishet man, you know, of course, why wouldn't you be attracted to trans women? And the same thing is true for gay men as well, I think, where I am too feminine for gay men, and too masculine for straight men. And I think that not being able to package me, not being able to package AMAB non-binary people into something they can be attracted to or not attracted to, I think it puts a little confusion, because I think masculinity is really built around sexual desire. I think that modern masculinity, Western masculinity is it's totally built around desire and power. Power in the eyes of other men, and desire and sexual potency in terms of their relationship to women. Oh my gosh, I didn't mean to start talking about masculinity, because, like, seriously, I could fucking talk about masculinity for 10 hours. I've been writing a video series for like 3 years now about masculinity. I think I understand it pretty well, and I think that it's something worth talking about. But yeah, like this commenter, KHT Ivana said, yes, I agree that non-binary people are more hard to understand for cis people than binary trans people are. It's true. It's true. We live in a gray space, and just in general, Western society and the world doesn't really like ambiguity, doesn't really like gray spaces or nuance. You know, we want to know who the good guys are, who the bad guys are, who's the hero, who's the villain. Is it day or night? Is it good or bad? We're obsessed with it. We're obsessed with binaries. And of course that extends into gender as well. Yeah, it's one of those things that it makes it difficult sometimes. But I think, but that's why, to get back to the topic at hand, that's why I think that there is so little representation of non-binary AMABs, why non-binary AMABs don't, why you don't hear about top surgery in the context of non-binary AMABs. Yeah. It is based on that sort of cis discomfort of things outside the binary. But I think that the discomfort is a place of huge potential. You know, it's like when you think of it, like gender relations, cisgender ideology and binary gender ideology has been stretched to its breaking point. It no longer exists in a healthy way, if it ever did, which I don't think it did. It is a relic of a time in which women especially were hyper subjugated by men. And I say relic of a time when that was happening as if it's not happening, but it is. Women are still hyper subjugated by men, even if the appearances might deceive you. We live in a male supremacist society. But it's different when, it's different to live in a world where all avenues are more closed to you as a woman than to live in a world where you are literally, in the eyes of the law and in the eyes of the people who control the law, inferior, and described as such in the law. There is a difference, even if it's subtle, even if it's just a transformation of the way oppression has worked. I think there is a difference between those two things. But yeah, I think that something that I really deeply believe, and this is sort of a hot take, if you will, is that so many people are non-binary. I think lots and lots and lots of people are non-binary and just don't know it, just don't realize it, because they don't have the words to describe it, or they don't know other non-binary people, or they don't see other non-binary people, or they're just so stuck in cis hetero ideology that they won't break out of it, because it would shatter their identity, because they're afraid of what that might mean for them, for their relationships with other people, for their relationships with significant others, whatever. I think that a majority of people in the world are non-binary, and you can take that however you want. I think that non-binary identities are extremely fluid. I think that it's like the Kinsey scale for sexuality. You know, it's not a binary. It is a spectrum, and it doesn't necessarily attune itself to the binary genders that have been constructed by Western society. But that said, like we were talking about in the beginning, gender is something that is constructed not in isolation, not by yourself. You cannot determine your gender alone. If you lived as a single person alone, apart from the world for your entire life, you would not have a gender, because gender is something that is constructed in relation to other people. but yeah, I think a lot more people than realize it are non-binary. I think a lot more people are queer in one way or another than realize it, or then they even feel they can express in a socially acceptable manner. But I guess there is no socially acceptable manner to express queerness, is there? Queerness is still subjugated, oppressed. Our concerns are beneath the concerns of cis people. And we get bones thrown to us when cis people want to appear progressive. And I guess what I mean by that is something that I'm still a bit sore about, a bit angry about, is when the Trump administration removed trans people from the White House website. That was a time when trans people were calling for attention, when trans people were trying to get our cis allies, the cis people who claim to be our allies, to wake the fuck up and recognize that is the first step in our eradication. We're literally being erased from the state, the website of the state. Our mentions of transness are being removed from the state apparatus. That is erasure. That is erasure, and that is the first step in eradication, in genocide. And I don't use that word lightly. I think it's very real. I think we are experiencing an ongoing genocide, not specifically against trans people. Of course, there is an ongoing genocide against Black people, against Indigenous people, carried out by agents of the state. It's not. That's something that I really want to impress upon anyone who cares to listen to me, is that we need to be serious and realistic about the state of our world. We live in a police state. We live in a fascist society. It's true, and Black people have known it forever. And waking up to it now, if that's when people are waking up to it, doesn't mean that it's just starting now. It's ongoing for quite a while, indefinitely, since the beginning of the first time someone called Turtle Island America. Genocide was already taking place. And it's awful. It's awful to see, and it's awful to recognize that a lot of people still aren't taking it seriously. A lot of people don't care. A lot of people are actively shaming vulnerable classes into voting for Joe Biden and his running mate, who is self-described as a super cop. I don't know. I don't want to get too much into electoral politics, because I don't think electoral politics is the way. It's certainly something that we need to be mindful of, but I don't think it's a way out of oppression at all. But yeah, it's for stuff like that to be happening, for the general reaction of cis people for their response to trans people calling for help, the many times that trans people have asked cis people to fucking pay attention to what is going on, the response has been lackluster, to say the least. It's shameful. It's shameful the way that people claim to be allies of trans people and are unable to understand that we are literally oppressed. We are literally being subjugated. We are literally in danger. And again, I say this every time because it needs to be acknowledged every time. I am white. I can pass as a man, as I was talking about earlier. I am not necessarily in danger of death, not immediately yet, but yet is really the operative word there. Right now, of course, as always, Black people, Indigenous people, dark-skinned people, and all of those people who are trans, who intersect with those identities, those are the people who are in danger right now. and they are being killed, and they are being brutalized. It's really hard, honestly. I try to stay off social media as much as possible because it's really, really difficult to go on every single day and see that another person has died. Another video of someone being brutalized by the police. And it's hard, not just because of the empathy that I have with these people, not just because my heart breaks when another human being is harmed, murdered, brutalized, an innocent person. My cat agrees. But it's not just because of that, it's because of all of the unseen violence that happens alongside it. We'll never know. We'll never know the extent of the genocide that the American government has waged against its own people. Those records aren't kept. We don't keep those records, certainly. We, as in the United States government. I shouldn't say we for that because I'm not a part of the United States government. But America doesn't keep records of its genocide, not to the degree under which it's happening, not when it happens in layers the way that it does, because genocide is not just either people are living or they're dying. Either the state is enacting horrible, brutal violence against them or they're not. It happens in shades. It's not a binary. People who aren't even physically touched by the state are being affected by this, are being traumatized by this. People who we need in our fight for liberation are being traumatized by state violence. And that's a part of the strategy of genocide, is to demoralize us, to scare us into submission. And whether or not you feel that it works against you, whether or not you feel afraid or empowered or invigorated, whatever it does to you, that tactic is effective. There is someone out there who is rightfully terrified for their lives and making the decision not to stand up, not to speak out, not to live as they are, not to express themselves fully. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The individual does not matter. We can all, put together graphics that say stand strong, believe in yourself, you are beautiful. But it's not, we'll never be able to create propaganda on the level that the United States and Western society has to program us to feel like those things aren't true. Like we should respect the authority of the state, regardless of how violent it is being. And I think trans people, I think oppressed classes, I think vulnerable classes have an easier time overcoming the propaganda that is foisted on us, Excuse me. We are taught our whole lives through TV, movies, books, video games, social gatherings that only two genders exist, men and women. That is what I was taught growing up. That was what was true everywhere you looked your whole life. Like the prevalence of trans stories today is literally infinitely greater than it was 20 years ago. There's no comparison. And that's great. And it's really good that trans people exist, that they're being represented. Our stories are being represented. Queer stories in general are being represented. That's all for the good. But we still grow up internalizing the vast majority opinion, which is only two genders exist and they're binary. That's really easy for cis people to swallow. That's really easy for cis men and cis women to internalize and say like, well, yeah, that jives with how I feel, so it must be right. And they go on and consume all of that other stuff, all of everything else that follows after that lie, uncritically. They just consume it, internalize it. That's the way things are. But for trans people, we always have known that there is something wrong with that. Even if we didn't know, you know, there's like a piece of us inside, because of who we are, because of how we live our lives, because of what it literally means to be trans. That propaganda is not effective on us. It doesn't work. We can't accept it fully. Even if we internalize it, even if we damage ourselves by thinking that it's true, we are unable to really internalize that idea, that propaganda. And because of that, we're able to see past other propagandas easier. And the same thing is true, I imagine, for Black people and for Indigenous people who see only white people on TV. And so I guess what I'm getting at right now is that our supposed allies, our cis allies, our white allies, people who consider themselves progressive, we need you to be more serious. We need you to rapidly unlearn the notion that the United States is a force of good. Because that's the only way we can do this is together. The only way that we can succeed, the only way that we can end the United States is together. We can't win. I mean, fuck the United States. Forget the United States for 2 seconds. Do you remember the report that came out, I think like 2 years ago, that in 12 years, catastrophic climate change will become unstoppable unless we like reverse carbon emissions? That is not happening. We got 10 years left. We got 10 fucking years left to stop the very worst effects of climate change. That's what we got. And if we don't do that, it's very, very likely that billions of people will die. Billions of people will die. The world is ending. Like, sorry to burst the bubble, but the world is coming to an end one way or another. And by that, I don't mean the planet Earth. The planet Earth is not the same thing as the world. The Earth will survive. The Earth is fine. But the world, the human world that we have created, the capitalist world, the colonialist world, the imperialist world that we live in, is ending. It's over. It's already dead. What we're experiencing now are its death throes as we, the people, fight for our lives, for the freedom that we have always been denied. So, fuck Kamala Harris. Fuck Joe Biden. Ugh. God, that came out weird. I don't know why. But fuck electoral politics. Do you think Joe Biden is going to do jack shit to end climate change? No. The bar is on the floor. Democrats don't stand up to Republicans in anything. They flail their hands and go like, oh, these bad boys are just doing anything. That was not a great impression, by the way. I know you're all thinking it. It wasn't an impression. There was no one person it was an impression of, but God, I could stand to not do that again. Yeet. Yeah, I see your comment. I'd like it if the colonialist and capitalist world would end, but unfortunately it'll take us with it in the fall. Yeah, it's true. I mean, it is ending. There's no possible, I don't see a future in which climate change is undone in time to prevent the fall of empires. I think that in the West, we like to believe that our technology grants us superiority to, I see. My mistake. Thank you for the clarification, Heat. But still, we're not gonna overcome climate change. Our technology, we, like, men especially love to praise our technology, love to love our technology, love to think about colonizing Mars. You fucking assholes! Like, you finished colonizing the, like, non-white races of the world, so now you got to colonize a fucking planet. Fuck you. Jesus. Yeah. I'm a little emotional today. Wow. And this stream is no longer about top surgery. Yeah. Yeet, I don't know. I don't know if we can kill colonialism, imperialism, capitalism before climate change comes up. I think we're gonna have to do the best we can. What I really hope for and what I really want to see happening, which is happening, is people getting organized, people coming together, people finding their fight, finding their people, finding the way that they can help each other, and just sort of preemptively building those communities. And I'm not saying it's impossible either. I don't want to just say that it can't happen. But it definitely won't if our cis allies and white allies don't fucking start showing up to the plate. Don't start having uncomfortable conversations with their families, with their loved ones, with their coworkers. Y'all need to do better. Y'all need to realize that the whole existence of the human race is at stake. And that's why we can't wait. We can't just keep electing shittier and shittier Democrats. Are you kidding me? It's like the lesser of two evils is beyond apt in this situation. It's like we keep getting worse fucking choices. It's like, and because Trump has set the bar so low, because he is a literal fascist authoritarian who began concentration camps, who is actively committing genocide against indigenous people and Black people, the bar is through the floor. And so Democrats can just they can just post this fucking loser Joe Biden. They can just say you gotta have him. You can't have that socialist Bernie Sanders. We put an end to that. You have to vote for us, because otherwise you get Trump. It's like Trump isn't that much worse than the Democrats who have let Trump do whatever the fuck he wants. Democrats have, all they've done is enable Trump again and again and again and again. Where does the responsibility lie? Yeah, right. The US democratic system ain't democratic. It's not. No two-party system can really be democratic. And the Democrats are certainly not an opposition party. Wow. This got so off topic, but it all flowed. I swear to God, if you're just joining us, we started in one place and ended up in another, and that's okay. But yeah, I do want to just recap word. No worries, Yeet. I'm always happy to go on discursive tangents. That's just how my brain works. Yeah, I do want to just recap a little bit though. So gender, we talked about what gender is and how gender is not something that you can have in isolation. Gender is something that is part of the social fabric of our lives, and that means that part of how gender is realized is through perception, through other people perceiving you and gendering you. That's why we have that verb to gender someone correctly. And that's just sort of the way it works. That's part of living in a society, is we have to understand gender to be something that is socially constructed. Top surgery is predominantly seen as something for AFAB non-binary people, but I expressed a desire. I would love to have breasts. God, I'm like giggling as I say that because of the way that our society has sexualized breasts, sexualized parts of non-male anatomy, whatever. Jesus Christ. We gotta have better words. Yeah, I do want breasts. I want to have, I think it would be cool. I think that's a part of who I am, and that would help me really feel and live inside of my gender. I just have to say this because this is hilarious to me, but the stream was like at 5 people, and then I said, I want to have breasts, and 5 more people joined. It's like, were you listening? Were you just waiting for me to talk about wanting boobs? That's just really funny to me. But yeah, so I would love to live in a world where more like AMAB people are represented, are seen. I think the reason that we're not is discomfort, the discomfort of cis men and the male gaze. Non-binary AFABs still fit in much more cleanly into what is acceptable under patriarchy. And I'm sorry, that sucks. It's like, but it is part of the reason. It's part of the reality of living in a male supremacist society, which we do. But yeah, I don't know if you're watching this and if you are an AMAB non-binary person, my fondest wish is for you to live the life that you want to express yourself the way that you want to be the person that you are, because you can do it. I so strongly believe that you can do it. And I just wish the best for you. It's like people, like there's few enough of us in the public sphere as it is. There needs to be more. And I think that when we stand together, the world kneels at our feet. We are incredible. All trans people are fucking incredible, so powerful. God, I love trans people. I wake up in the morning and thank God that I'm trans. I'm so happy about it. We are a blessing to the earth. We are a blessing to each other. We are a blessing to the human race. We are powerful and we are amazing. Bless trans people. Oh God, maybe that should be my new sign off. I think too much about that stuff. But yeah. Sorry, I'm just like, it looks like someone's typing a comment, so I'm waiting because I won't ever respond. Yeah, I don't know. Love being trans. Dude. Sorry if that's not cool. I'm Californian, so I just say that word. That's fucking awesome. Spacey 12. Yeah, I hope that you are able to do that someday. I'm not actually sure if that's something that T does. I've never looked into HRT testosterone, but I feel you. I feel you wanting that thing that you see out in the world. And that's a part of why I was saying that gender is socially constructed, because if we lived alone, it's like if I were in isolation my whole life, I wouldn't know about breasts because my body would have never developed them on its own. Word, thank you, Emilio. Then, I think that it's possible that both of us might get our desires someday then. And that would be really sick. And I really an end to dysphoria for every trans person. Let's Let's go. I don't know why that seems like a chant, like a soccer, like where you go, end dysphoria. I don't know why. Yeah. And I'm certainly not saying that my desire to have breasts, my desire to have boobs is unusual or something that only AMABs can experience. We're all in it together, but it is interesting that we have different struggles. I think that is so interesting. I definitely don't want to Wow. Codex Potter. I'm just going to read this. My partner is AMAB non-binary and eventually wants top surgery to have breasts. I identify as cisgender, but I want top surgery too. See, this is what I'm talking about. It's like it's the way that we define gender, the way that we live in this binary world of gender is so limiting. It's so Codex Potter went on to say, I never say I want top surgery because everyone either tells me I'm actually trans or I just want smaller boobs. Fuck that. How can they know? How can anyone know but you what your gender is, right? Like, no offense to the people who did that, but they can't say. Only you can. And who knows? And like, maybe someday you will decide you're trans. Maybe you won't. It doesn't really matter. You know, even with the language we have to describe gender outside of the binary, words are still limiting. You know, the reality cannot be spoken by words. The truth is forever something that exists in our minds and can't be put into language, because language is a limitation on the way that we perceive the world. Jackson Bird said they went through the TSA and it gets flagged because they look like a Ken doll, nothing on top or bottom. And I heard that and it was like, yes, that's what I want. Oh my God, I love this. Oh, you have made my day just hearing about your experience. Oh, it's so cool. Like, literally, I wish it's like if other people, if everyone could be as open and as open is the best word, but not just open to randos, open to strangers, but open with themselves. Think of how much better the world would be, how much less tension people would carry in their bodies if they could be honest the way that you are. That is so fucking inspiring and admirable. I just think it's the coolest thing in the world. And it also just makes me really glad to hear about your partner who is AMAB and wants top surgery to have boobs. It's like, I don't think I've ever met another AMAB non-binary person who wants that. I don't feel alone or whatever, but it's like, because I know that I just have this belief that if you feel something, then probably someone else does too. But it's cool to know that exists, that is a real thing that is out there for people. Fuck, man. This is beautiful. This has been a beautiful fucking stream. Talked about top surgery, talked about imperialism. It seems to always come up because trans people are oppressed by the state, among other peoples who are also oppressed by the state. I can't help it. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna call it a day for now. Thank all of you for watching. Thank you all of you who commented. It really, really means the world to me that you participate in this, that you're talking, because I don't want to just be alone in my room shouting into the void. Like, having someone to talk with is beautiful. Oh no. I'm sorry, James. It's okay. There will be another one next week. I'm doing this regular now. But yeah, like, thank you everyone. Thank you everyone who came. Thank you everyone who commented, and just like really take time in your life to remember that you are beautiful. that you are an amazing person, that you deserve to live, that this world belongs to all of us as much as it belongs to anyone. That doesn't mean, and I don't mean that in the sense of control or ownership. I mean that we belong here, that we have a right to be here on this planet, and we have a right to take part in life in the truest sense of that word, in the whatever that looks like for us, whatever that means for us. We have the right to live our true existence. Yeah, so I hope that energy carries with you through the rest of the day. I don't know what I'm gonna do now. I'm sweating like fuck because I had to turn off the fan so that you guys could hear me. So maybe I'm gonna take a shower and eat something. All right, catch you later. Trans people are blessed. And I'll see you next week. Bye.